By the end of this video, you'll have a complete understanding of how to set up and navigate DaVinci Resolve's color page. You'll learn how to build a proper node structure, convert your log footage into DaVinci Wide Gamut, and out to Rec.709 for a professional workflow. We'll deep dive into exposure, white balance, and contrast, step by step, and by the time we're done, you'll be comfortable shaping your footage and adding creative looks. Plus, you'll get access to free digital products, massively speeding up your learning on your color grading journey. Hi, my name's James Morrison. I've been shooting and editing videos for over 7 years, working with brands like The North Face, Aperol, and Sony Music. Now I'm taking everything that I've learned over the years and sharing it with you, so you can build your skills, grow your creative career, and turn your passion into a sustainable business like I have. All right, let's get into the video. So first thing, we go up to DaVinci Resolve, go to Preferences. If we go into System here, go to General, and we'll put on Use 10-bit Precision, and then use Mac Display Color Profiles for viewers. Now, click that if you're using a Mac, and then click this one here. Automatically tag Rec.709 as Rec.709A, and save. Next, we will go into our color page, and we'll go down to our settings here. Go to our color management. Now, color science, we're going to use DaVinci YRGB. So that's what we're going to use. Don't worry about these other ones. They're not important for this video. And then timeline color space, it's going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. And then output color space, Rec.709 Gamma 2.2. So one more thing, you'll have to download this. So in this video monitor lookup table, you'll see I've got CKC macOS. So this is Cullen Kelly macOS viewing transform. So go and download that. I'll link it below so you can download. And essentially what you'll want to do is when you download it, just open up this LUT folder here and then bring your CKC Mac Viewing OS in here and then restart DaVinci. And you'll see it appearing in here and then just click it on. We'll select 2.2 because we're using Gamma 2.2 as our output color space. And then just go up here, save current settings as default, and then save. Okay, so that's the background settings setup. So I'll take you through my workflow. If your screen doesn't look like this, you can turn on your clips like here. You don't really need them on, but I'll just keep them on for now. Your scopes are here. So this one's our scopes. We've got our different scopes in the bottom right. You don't need to worry too much about those for now, but I'll use them for reference. And then we've got our color tools down here. So we've got our wheels, our curves, our HSLs. So don't worry too much. We'll break it down bit by bit. It looks kind of scary and complicated, but it's really not. There's a few that you'll use, on every edit. And then some you'll probably just never use. So, all right. So that being said, this is our node area. So this is where we can add nodes. Now, what's a node? A node is a place where you can make some changes. So if I add a node here, I can come down here. And if I make a change here, you can see it's reflected on the video. So a node is just a place to make some changes on the footage. And we can actually stack nodes together. So we can make a change here. Say we make a change on the gamma here, we pull that down. And then say we make a change on the saturation on this one. These are separate. So you can see if I turn off the saturation, the gamma contrast is still applied. So let's just reset those. So we're not going to do that. We're going to set up our workflow first. So before we can start color grading, we need to set up our node structure. For now, I'll just add in 2 because I don't want to overwhelm you. Let's put 1 at the end and 1 at the beginning. So this one, what we're going to do is we're going to take our Sony S-Log3 footage, which you can see here is very washed out and flat. We're going to take that and we're going to bring it in to DaVinci Wide Gamut color space. Now, if you haven't color graded before, that's going to make absolutely no sense. So Don't worry, it's in the cheat sheet. You can reference it and it's okay. Just stick with me. We'll get there. So let's go to our input color space and we'll go down to S-Log. Sorry, S-Gamma 3 Cine. And then input gamma is S-Log. Now, if you're working on a Canon or another camera, like say you're using Nikon, Canon, Leica, you'll have Canon C-Log, Nikon N-Log, Leica L-Log, Panasonic P-Log. You'll have all these different log profiles on your camera. So let's say, for example, you're shooting on Canon. You just go to Canon Cinema Gamut, and then you would go to Canon Log 3 or Log 2 or whichever one you used on your camera. So I'm shooting on Sony. So we'll go to Sony Gamma 3, Sony S-Log 3. And then we'll want to put this into DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate. So we can rename this one CST, it's color space transform in. So we've set up our first color space transform. Now, everything after this node is going to be in the DaVinci Wide Gamut color space. So any node after this one is going to be inside DaVinci Wide Gamut. So if I open up this chart, you can see DaVinci Wide Gamut, you've got this massive triangle. That is where we are going to be doing all of our color grading inside this large color space. And the reason for that is it gives us the most flexibility and control on our edits. We don't need to worry too much about what all these things are. We just need to know that DaVinci Wide Gamut is a huge color space, and that's why we've taken our S-Log footage and put it into the massive color space. So we've done that. And then everything in here, this is where we're going to do all our grades, all our coloring, everything is going to be done inside DaVinci Wide Gamut. Now, once we're done with all our grades here, we're going to take that DaVinci Wide Gamut signal here. Let me just add another color space transform. Let me just tidy this up so it's not confusing. So we're going to take the DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate signal. So we're going to take the signal, it's going through here, through all our color grading, and then back out to here. We're going to take that signal and we're going to put it to Rec.709 Gamma 2.2. So now we have got a CST in and a CST out. So our CST out sits there, our CST in sits here, and we don't need to do anything to those. So we can lock them. Lock. You don't have to lock them, but I mean, they're just there. So now what we've got is we've got this sandwich where everything we do in between these two nodes is our actual color grade. Let's set this up. We're going to have our exposure. So this is how I like to work. Then we're going to have our white balance. And then we're going to add our contrast. So the first thing you'll want to do, so once you've set up the settings, you've set up your color space transforms, and all the technical things are out of the road, you can eventually start to color grade. For every edit, I will do this. It'll be the same for every single piece of footage that I color grade. It's going to be in this workflow. So we've got our project settings, our color settings, we've got our CSTs in and our CSTs out. That is going to be the same for every single project. Whenever it comes to your color grading, set this up, save it, and what you can actually do is in DaVinci. So let me just, I've got all these different grades here. So let's just create a new power grid album. Say, for example, I have built this. I'll build this node tree for you and I'll link it below so you can just download it. And what you'll want to do is you'll just want to import. So if I just right click and say grab still, so this is what you'll see. So I'll export this and then you can import it into your workflow. But essentially what that means is, say, for example, if I delete that, if I grab this one and just drag it over, it's just going to, that structure that I've set up is saved inside this still. So let's say we go to another clip We can drag it over and you can see it'll just apply it. Now it's obviously makes sense to do that because you don't want to be setting up, CSTs in and out for every single clip. You can just copy and paste. Let's carry on with our color grade. So let's take this clip, for example, here. So I've got a shot of me standing on the cliffs, and we've got our nodes here. Let's just change this one to our parade. So you can see, just based on this graph here, that it's a little bit underexposed. So I want to brighten it up. So you can see that my highlights are all sitting pretty low here. So everything's pretty underexposed. So I've got my exposure node here. So that's where I'll fix exposure. To fix our exposure, we can use our primaries. We can use our color wheels. We can use our log wheels, or we can use our high dynamic range color wheels. So the log wheels, the color wheels, primaries, and the HDR. Forget the color for a second. We just want to focus on these sliders here. So you can see that the shadows are lifting by using this control, and then the mids are lifting, then the highlights are lifting. The color wheels versus the log wheels versus the HDR wheels, they're all doing the same thing. They just do it in a slightly different way. And to show you that as a representation, so we've got our wheels, and these are just going to fix our exposure. So if we take this grayscale, for example, this is just a representation of black to white. And you can see here on the graphs, we've got blacks are at 0 and the whites are at 1, 0, 2, 3. So if you see where the pointer is, you can see as I move the dropper, it's going down the line. And it's just showing that where this pointer is, it's represented on this graph visually as black. And then as we go up to white. If I start to adjust, let's say the shadows, so the bottom half is going to get adjusted. So if I just adjust the shadows, you can see that the curve starts to bend, and I go up and down, and you can see how this slider affects the blacks and the shadows. So it's almost like it gets locked off at about 384, and it's very localized to this area. Now let's look at what happens. That's the log wheel. Let's reset. Let's look what happens when I go to the color wheels, and the lift is the same as the shadows basically. But let's have a look at what happens. If I put those down, look how the curve moves now. See how the whole curve is moving? It's not just locked off at 384. See how if I put them up, the whole curve. So it's doing the same thing, but it's just doing it in a different way. That's why if you switch between color wheels and log wheels, it's gonna have a different effect on your shadows. And that goes for midtones and highlights. It'll just impact them. If you can have a look here. So there's the highlights on the log wheel, and then down and up, it's locking off at the top half. Whereas if I go to this one and go to the gain, it's moving, but it's not locking off. It's moving the whole piece of footage basically. Now let's jump over to our HDR and see how that affects that. So if I go to shadow here and pull down the shadows, you can see now it's completely different. It's kind of bending. It's still focused in on this localized area of the shadows, but it's a bit more subtle and not as extreme as the other ones. If I go to dark, you can see that I can bring the darks down, but we're not losing any data. We're still above the 0. Whereas on the other one, if I brought these down, you can see it's gone. We've lost everything that's went under that line is gone. The data's gone. See how quickly we lost it there? So if we use the HDR wheel and go to darks, we don't lose it. You see, we can still bring the darks down, but we're not losing any data. So the HDR wheels gives us a lot of control. Same on the top end. Gives us more control. So when you're fixing your exposure, you have the choice between using these wheels and just knowing exactly how they affect your shadows, your highlights, and your mids will basically allow you to have greater control on your color grade. So we can see if we look at our image. Now, I exposed this at about 1.7 on the Sony. So I obviously couldn't adjust it because I set it all up and then walked into the frame. But I don't mind the exposure. Like looking at it, like according to the graph, it's kind of sitting a little bit under, but I don't mind it. I'll just bring it up a touch. I'm pretty happy with where it's sitting. So I'll just bring it up a touch and then I'll bring down the highlights a sec. So I'll just toggle before and after. And I think that's enough. Like you don't really need to do anything. I'm happy with that. And I know I'm going to bring contrast back into it. So it's going to lift it slightly, brighten it up, and pretty happy with that. So let's go to the white balance next. So white balance. Now, right click your node, go to your gamma, and then go up to linear. And then if I go to the color wheels, make sure you're not on log, make sure you're on the primaries. And then in your gain here, you can adjust. So this is how I like to fix my white balance. So let's have a look at the parade. So if I go to my shirt, I can see on the scopes that the red and the greens are sitting a little bit higher than the blues. So with that being said, if I want to balance it correctly, I'll just bring a little blue. And if I go back, you can see now the blues come up and the red and the green have come down. I can do it a little bit more. So now the green's too high. So I'll just pull that back a little bit. But let's have a look, pretty happy with it there. So if I go to this, now we've just balanced those red, green, and blues out. So if I go before and after, now technically that is more white balanced according to this, but I actually like that you've got this sort of red hue across the scene, because at the end of the day, it is a sunset. So, if you're happy with that balance, if you want it to be a bit warmer, that's totally fine. Like there's no problem there. Maybe I'll just put a little bit of blue in just to balance it a little bit, but that's before and that's after. So it kind of just takes the redness off the greens a little bit. You can see how the red moves down a touch and the greens look a bit more green. So I like that. Pretty happy with that one. And then we'll go to our contrast here. So we want to bring contrast back into our shot. It's looking a bit flat, and contrast can really make or break your footage. So if I go to this one, and what I like to do is bring down the saturation. So now we can see black and white, and this gives us a really good starting point to bring in some contrast. So we can see tonality much better, and we're now able to bring the contrast in. So let's just bring that down a bit. Let's bring up the exposure, bring that down. Okay. So now we're bringing some mood, some atmosphere, something a bit more to the footage. So let's do that, and then I'll just put the saturation back to 50. And then if I toggle this on and off, you can see now we've got a much more pleasing image. We've got contrast. We're seeing more details. We're seeing the colors pop a bit more. So, you can adjust after the fact as well. So if you want to just bring it a bit more, if you want it a little bit more, but I think where we were was pretty good. So pretty happy with that. So that's your basic corrections on a clip. Now we've done our color space transforms and we've done our simple corrections. So let's just have a look. Select all and then Command D to toggle them off and on, off and on, off and on. So the clip, we haven't done a lot to it, but you can see that this is where it's sitting. It's gone. You can see this sort of red tinge on the greens. So that's come off. They're looking a bit more green. There's a bit more contrast in the ocean, a bit more saturation in the ocean. And I think it's in a better place to where it was, to be honest. I like it how it is now. And because we shot with really nice light, and you know, I dialed all my settings into the camera, there's not a lot to do. Like if we went with just this, we're pretty close, and you know, we could start grading on top of this one because it's a nicely exposed shot. It's got nice light, you know, you've the natural light and nature's done the heavy lifting, obviously with the settings and the camera as well. Everything after this is going to be where you can start to have fun with your videos. This is where your look development comes in, your style, how you really want your image to look, and the creativity. I think that this is where the real creativity comes in. And once you've got these fundamentals down, you've got your technicalities and your exposure, balance, contrast. Once you've got your footage to a really nice starting place, then you can start to change the hues, you know, add more drama, you know, add more sharpness, have vignettes, you know, play with color and direct color, and you know, shape the light on your scene. So all of that fun stuff comes after this. And if you're wondering about LUTs and what LUTs are, so a lot of people will develop LUTs, but there's a lot of good ones and there's a lot of bad ones. So really a LUT would be anything after, like these nodes here would be your LUT. So this wouldn't be in your LUT, these wouldn't be in your LUT, this wouldn't be, but these ones could be. So this could be things like saturation, you could have some more contrast, you could have, you know, your luminance values, your hue, you could have some split toning. So all of this stuff would be where your LUT sits. And when you buy someone's LUT, if they've created a good one and if they've built it inside DaVinci Wide Gamut, you would simply take their LUT and drop it here. So let me just show you an example. So let's say that's the LUT. So if I go to my LUTs and if I grab this one, so this is one I created for greens and blues, drag it on top, and you can see before and after. So you can see that I've already built this LUT, and now I'm pretty happy with that. That's looking pretty good. So we've taken a nice exposed image, we've corrected it, we've done our color space transform, and then we've added a LUT. So it's not changed it massively, but it's also a good starting point to continue with the edit. Maybe I would like to bring the intensity of the LUT down, so you can bring it down maybe that much there. So before and after. So, but that's looking pretty good to me. So now what I could start to do is, on this shot especially, I could, let's say I want a little bit more focus on the subject here, which is me. So I could put a power window, mask it, I'll invert it, and then I'll just bring down the exposure on the curves here. So you can see I'm adding a subtle vignette. So it adds a bit more mood, a bit more drama. And let's put that one there. And then after the LUT, you know, we can also make more corrections. So let's say I want to do a bit more split toning on this shot. Well, that's totally fine as well. So how I would do that is, well, I've got a thing called a DCTL here, and I'll just put that on mono middle gray. I'll put that on DaVinci intermediate. So I'll just get my middle gray point, which is here. I'll just turn that off. So I've locked down my middle gray point, which basically means I can now, it's just good practice to do, especially if you're working with a lot of skin tones as well. You lock down your middle gray, and let's say I want to add a bit more blue into these shadows here. We can do that by just lifting up the blues on the shadows, and Maybe we want a bit more warmth and a bit more red on the highlights. We can also do that. So we can just go here. That's locked down. So let's bring a bit more red into our highlights. And let's have a look at that. So before and after. Very subtle, but whenever you're making changes on your color grade, let's zoom in. You don't want to make huge sweeping changes. You want to do very small incremental steps and build your look. So you can see the blue that I put into the shadows here it's a bit more blue, and then you can see in the highlights there's a bit more red. So before and after. So let's have a look. So even just those 3 small changes, so a LUT, a little bit of split toning and a vignette. Let's have a look at that before and after. Look how much of a change that makes on the clip. So color grading doesn't have to be complicated. And what I'll do for you is the LUT that I just have there. So it's not a finished LUT, but it works quite nicely for scenes with blue and green. So if you are shooting outside by the ocean, or you've got a lot of green, a lot of blues in your shots, you can use this LUT. I wouldn't use it for anything with a lot of skin tones. The magentas are a bit funny in it, and anything at nighttime. When you've got like nice, clean lighting, the LUT's pretty good. So don't use it for everything. If you've got a scene like this, let's just grab this still. So I'll grab this still here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn these all off. Then I'm going to go to my timeline. So this will apply a global timeline change. So what I can do now is, so that whole workflow, that whole process that I done there, what I can do now is, because I've added that whole workflow to the timeline, so it's going to apply to all of my clips here. So you can see that those exposure changes, the white balance change, the contrast, the LUT, the split toning, and the vignette is getting applied at a global level across all of the clips. So what we can do now is we can go through and start looking. So you can see how beautiful this shot is. Like the blues are really nice, the greens. So you can see how that LUT works well. Works well in that shot. So yeah, anything with green or blues, it's actually not bad. This is the sunset shot that I got. See, look, it does look a little bit funny on the sky. That could be the vignette, but not bad. Pretty nice for that scene. I'll build out this node tree. I'll put it in the description below so you can download it. I'll put some of this test footage so you can apply the node to this exact footage so you can practice. I'll put the LUT in there so you can just drag and drop it onto one of your nodes. And then I'll put together a cheat sheet so you can basically go through, and I'll put this in more detail with more explanations. I'll define a lot of the terms so you can just flick back to it. It's something I really wish I had when I was starting out color grading, because I have notes somewhere which says things like, what is, S gamut? What is DaVinci wide gamut? I just was so overwhelmed with all these terms, and it took a while to learn them. You don't really need to know what they are scientifically. Like, you don't really need to know that much detail. You just need to know where you put them and, where they sit in the order of things. Because if I put, say, this CST in at the end, and say I swap these two around, it's not going to work. So you just have to know that you're working inside these two nodes, and with the correct project settings and correct color management settings, that everything that you do here is going to be utilizing, you're going to be utilizing the best in terms of the color spaces. So that's the workflow. Hopefully that was helpful. This is a really good starting point, and it can go more technical. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but the future videos I'll start getting more technical, I'll start showing you how I created this LUT and, you know, what I did in the settings here. And, you know, you've got these things called DCTLs, which there's so many free downloads and tools that other creators have made. So I'll show you all those and how I use them in my workflow. But for now, keep it simple, get the fundamentals down, and get your project settings set up. And if you're taking your S-Log footage, running it through this workflow, whatever comes out at the end, you can be confident that you've got all your settings correct. Then it's just a case of learning this bit in between. So this is where you'll want to spend most of your time. You know, you can understand this bit pretty fast, your exposure, white balance, and contrast. That's just corrections. But the hard bit and the most creative bit is when you're developing looks, split toning, using HSL curves, and all these other things you can do to get your footage to look how you want it to look. That'll all be done here. So this should set you up to basically learn that. If you do have any questions, or there's a different way that you've done it, please comment below and let me know, because I'm always open to learning, happy to chat and learn from each other. So that being said, I will see you in the next video.